You've seen 5 tips to great tenons. You've also watched the video on 10 tips for great tenons. I'm sure you've seen the video on 100 tips for making great tenons. Today we're going to do a video on an unlisted number of tips for a great tenon. Number 1, don't use a pencil. A pencil gives you a thickness to a line, and you don't know is it the middle, the side, the other side. Pencils will never be 100% accurate. Whereas when going across the grain, a wheel guide will actually cut it, or you can use one with a knife. This will give you a sliced line. Everything on one side of the slice stays, everything on the other side of the slice stays. It's an infinitely small line. Extra accuracy at this stage will mean better accuracy later. On the end grain, I prefer to use a pin gauge. I find that it gives me a little bit better line, and it doesn't run astray like the knife or the wheel will. It doesn't wind up running along the edge of the board. Tip number 2, when you get good at cutting, you can cut right down the line. But until you get to that stage, stay away from the line. Keep off of it a good ways. I like to stay off about a 1/16 inch or so. When you're starting to learn, it makes it just a little bit easier, because you can always clean up, you can't always add more. Number 3, once you have the line established, cut uphill. It's always easier to cut uphill. You get a cleaner cut uphill. Running across the grain, or worse yet, downhill, you're going to be running into more problems because those fibers are sticking into the teeth. You cut uphill and you're going to get a nice paring cut. So I want to go from corner to corner and then take it out, flip the board around, and now I can cut uphill from the other side. So now that we've cut down the cheeks, we can rotate it and we can cut down the shoulders. This is going to be done with a carcass saw. It has cross-cut teeth. Again, I want to stay away from the line and then work across. But with this, I don't have to worry about going uphill because there is no uphill. All the grain is going this way. Keep a little ways away from the line. Bring it back across. And now, because I have that extra space on the cheek, I don't have to worry about cutting too far. I just cut until this falls off. Number 5, grab a 1/2 inch chisel, but only use 1/3 of it. I'm going to put it right into that marking gauge line, and I'm going to push it across and shear off that little bit. And then I'm going to come in another 1/3, and I'm going to let the starting edge reference back over here, tip it back in, get right into that line, and push it back in. And now I've got this large ledge over here. I can always let this ride on, and I can just go 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And because I have that really nice, clean line, not a pencil, but actually a line that the chisel can fit into, I get a registered mark that feels really good, and I know I'm going straight onto that line. Now we want to shear off this tenon and clean it up. The problem is we stayed a little ways away from our line, and the tenon is taller than my chisel is wide. Now I could get a wider chisel, but most of the time I actually prefer to do this in 2 passes. I'll do about halfway up here. I'll set it right into that line, wiggle it in a little ways, and I'm going to eyeball this top as I run across. So we can go all the way across, keeping it right on that line until we get to the other side. Except we're going to stop right about there. Then I'm going to come down here, put it right into the bottom, do the same thing here, and I'm going to register this edge right up against the edge that I just created to clean it up. Next, we can come around to the other side and pare out from this side without letting it blow out. There you go, nice clean face there. Come down a step farther, clean out the bottom. Now if this tenon were only the length that my chisel is wide, we'd be in a much better case. Get those little strings in here, come in with the corner of the chisel, and clean it out. Next, to make sure you got a perfect edge, put the side of the chisel on there, start at one side, come across the other side, and it should touch both sides with maybe a little gap in the middle. But down here, I've got a little bit of rock. I've got some thickness right here. I've got to remove that. So I can just come into this, pare it out, bring it back in here, and there. Now we've got a good clean line all the way across. Tip number 10, don't be afraid to undercut. If you undercut a little bit in here, you're not going to have quite the good glue lamination, but you're still going to have a good strong tenon. However, with a little bit of undercutting here, you know you're going to get a better fit. Same thing with the shoulder. You can undercut the shoulder just a little bit as well, and you're never going to have a problem with that. As long as you leave these edges crisp and sharp. Remember those sharp lines we made with the marking gauge line? That line is the first cut. That line you cannot touch. You cannot move that line. As long as you keep that sharp line sharp, you'll still have a decent tenon. A little bit undercutting, especially on the shoulder, is fine. If you really have to, you can undercut the cheek a little bit, but don't worry about it too much. So you say freehand chiseling is a bit too much, and that might not be exactly what you want. The best way to do it is the shoulder plane. With this, you can come in here and you can take passes just like you would with a chisel, except for it's a controlled amount that comes off. And so we'll do there, we'll go one more here, and one more here. We'll turn around and do the other side. And with this, the shoulder plane, well, it does cheeks and it does shoulders. It does them very well. You could also do it with a rabbit plane, but the shoulder plane is what it's designed to do. And after a few passes of that, we can check, and sure enough, we're nice and flat all the way across. Got a good, clean cheek on there. And yes, shoulder planes are very good for doing, wait for it, shoulders. Kind of cool here, huh? Watch this. So we can come on here, because it's such a low angle, we can get that shaving coming off there, come around from the other side so we don't blow it out. And we just go back and forth until we're down to our line. And we get a nice clean shoulder with a shoulder plane. That's kind of an interesting idea. Shoulder planes, not just for cheeks. So you don't have a fancy shoulder plane or a rabbit plane. All you have is a bench plane and a chisel. You can still do it with that, even if you can't freehand. The problem with a bench plane is it's got these cheeks on here and it won't get all the way up against the shoulder. You can't push something right up against it. You could also come in with a small 1/4 inch chisel and just pair in right up here close to the line, come in from the other side, pair in along there, and you'll get yourself a nice clean slot. Now you can bring in your bench plane and get right up against that shoulder. And you can pair that right down to the line, get a very nice clean line on there, and really nice glue surface on that shoulder. Yeah, it'll be a little guard up by the shoulder, but that's not a problem. The cheek is where the glue needs to be, and you're never going to see inside there. Another common method to fix it up is a router plane. With this, you can put some weight out here on the reference surface, and you can router. The problem is, with a small tenon like this, it's not a huge issue, but if it's a longer tenon, you're putting weight out here, and it's very easy to tip this, and especially with the blade catching, it'll want to dig in. So that's why I made this one. The router sticks all the way out here, and I can get all this surface over here that I can very easily clean out. And know that I'm referencing off that board all the way across, and get a very, very clean parallel surface all the way across. And if I need to go down a little more, just loosen it up, let it go down a little more, tighten it back up, and go at it. Then you can come in and clean out any of that last minute fuzz, just like you did before, taking little bit by little bit, marching across the surface. Really nice, tight, clean tenon, clean shoulder, happiness. Tip number 743, don't stress it. Tenons are actually a really good joint because even if they're not 100% perfect, they're still a good mechanical joint, and you don't need them to be absolutely gorgeously perfect. The better you make them, the better the glue's gonna hold. But the glue's not what's really holding this together, it's the joinery. And even a semi-good tenon will do great work. One of the problems with YouTube is we see perfect tenons being done all the time. And they're not. It's just, you can't show problems on a channel. They just don't show up. So just understand, none of these tenons are perfect. They all have issues. They all have weird things, but they would all be a fully functional, good tenon. Don't stress it. Don't overwork it. Just make a tenon. Have a little bit of fun. Try different things and find a method that works for you. So I hope all 33 of these tips work for you. Tenons are really kind of the basic joint. Pretty much every joint out there is a type of tenon. Other than the butt joint, you're going to be making some type of tenon. And if you can master this, then all the other joints become a lot easier. So have a little bit of fun. Get in the shop, try some things out. Don't worry too much, relax, and enjoy the project. Now this isn't an exhaustive list of tips and tricks. There are a lot more out there. That's why there's an unlisted number of tips and tricks in this video, because there are so many more to come. And if you have something that works really well for you, something that helps you out, throw that in the comments down below. I do want to read that, and it may help out someone else, because there are 1,000 ways to do it. And until you find the way that works really well for you, you're probably going to be having issues. So try out different methods and find one that works for you. I hope you like that. Let me know your thoughts, comments, ideas, snide remarks, and other comments down below. So thank you for all of the comments down below. You can also hit like and share. Those help out a lot. Speaking of helping out, everyone who's scrolling over here on the side, they are patrons on Patreon. And a huge thank you goes to patrons on Patreon and the people who've clicked the little join button and become a member here on YouTube. Without you guys, this channel wouldn't exist. So thank you for that. We do have some special perks for you guys. And without you guys, the lights wouldn't be on here and this channel wouldn't be rolling. So thank you. If you'd like to find out more, items down below, or click the little join button. And I think that'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Tip number 73,564,693. A cluttered bench is a happy bench. Keep your bench happy.